How are we doing today? Well, we've had, I think, a productive week, and, for us, the week kind of gets broken up a little bit in that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those two practices were still sort of camp-like with an emphasis on things that the people in the first 4 games that we play do differently than what maybe we've seen from our offense. And we've taken 2 or 3 periods each day in practice and, focused on, some of those different things. And probably helps the defensive players who have less experience to get exposed to some of those things a little bit more than it does some of our offensive guys who have more experience and have been exposed to it. But we had a really productive week. I think the 2 days off helped a lot of guys, got rid of a lot of bumps and bruises. I think the guys started to get their legs back. We looked a little crisper, sharper, fresher, faster, and all that kind of stuff in these 3 days. And then tomorrow, we'll start some preparation for San Jose State. So I think, this is kind of judgment day for us. We have to at least make some kind of determinations now, and we haven't done that yet as to, who we're going to coach, what we're going to do. Are we going to play guys? Are we not going to play them? We're going to get them ready to play, because you can't get enough reps in practice to get everybody ready to play. So it's a little bit D-Day, Judgment Day, whatever for, us as a football team as terms of, personnel moving forward and how we want to sort of try to, get our guys to compete, get better, still work on fundamentals, but we can't do it with the whole team. Some of the team has to be ready to help get the other guys ready to play the games. I think the team needs to be making some decisions about what the identity of, this team is going to be. And it's really not about who we're playing. It's a lot more about who we are in terms of the kind of competitive spirit that we have, the kind of maturity we have as competitors to go out there and be relentless for 60 minutes in the game, one play at a time, every play in the game, to try to dominate the competition. And I think that's how we get better. I think practicing that way helps you do that in games. And, we've shown some signs of, doing that, in these last 3 practices. I don't really have any new injuries, to report. Dee did practice yesterday, and he also practiced the whole practice today. Minzy practiced some yesterday and practiced the whole practice today. Blake Sims has been practicing. So we don't really have. Kendall Kelly came back today, but he's got to work himself back into shape and got cleared medically to go out and play. We did our O-line experiment. We sort of got back to where we were. And defensively, we've been moving the linebackers around, so we're going to have to settle on how we're going to proceed, in the next couple of days in terms of getting guys ready to play a game. I don't really have anything to report on this NCAA stuff. I know you're going to ask me because somebody said North Carolina has something going on tonight, but I know nothing, have heard nothing, and have been informed of nothing. So we'll just wait and see.
Coach, in terms of the competition in the secondary, now through preseason and almost a week to go to the game, is there anything you've learned about this group that you maybe didn't know beforehand? And just overall, how comfortable do you feel with how things are going?
Well, I feel really comfortable with the players that we have. The thing that has been most difficult, through this camp is when you have a new group and you have a lot of guys that haven't played, you'd really like to get some continuity in practice about guys playing together. And we have continually had, 2, 3 guys out and haven't been able to, do that. But saying all that, I'm really pleased with the progress that we've made and the improvement that we made, with the group. I still, without having everybody healthy on the field, it's hard to figure out which best combination would be for us relative to nickel and dime and the different personnel groups that, you know, we've always been able to utilize on the field. So we're going to try to put the, you know, 4 best guys out there in regular, the 5 best guys out there in nickel, and the 6 best guys however they fit in dime. And, you know, part of that is dependability, and that's knowing what to do and being able to do your job and execute it, so that, you know, you don't get beat with a lot of mental errors. So I'm pleased with the progress that we made, but we're not totally satisfied with, you know, where we are, primarily because we haven't been able to develop the continuity due to too many guys missing practice.
And you also said determination is still being made. Is there anything been settled at kicker and punter yet, or are you still waiting to see there?
No. I might make that decision in pregame. See who's hot.
Coach is a little bit old, but seems like every year you have an interesting selection of speakers that come in during camp. Can you mind sharing who this year was here and who kind of really turned heads?
Well, we had some good ones, and I wish I had the list in front of me. Andy Andrews, Dr. Elko came back and spoke to the players. We had somebody from the NCAA who came in and talked to the players about agents and gambling. You know, we had a very interesting, I can't remember name, Sullivan, I can't remember his first name, that talked about Dennis O'Sullivan, who talked about, you know, drug and alcohol use and abuse and how it affects your ability to perform. So we had a lot of good speakers, and you know, I think, you know, most everybody gets down to the same thing. You know, what kind of choices and decisions do you make? And you know, I thought one of the best things that I heard from all that was, you know, Dr. Elko asked the players, what do you pray for? Do you pray to be blessed, or do you pray to be a blessing? That struck me more than anything that anybody said. And I guess that we would like to have a lot of people out there that are blessings, because that means that they're doing a lot to help a lot of other people and doing a lot of positive things to help not only themselves but other people, society, and a lot of other things. So, but we had a lot of good speakers, and I think that's part of the personal development program. The PX2 guys came back and, you know, spent a day here and spoke to the players about, you know, affirmations and goals and, you know, things that they wanted to accomplish and what are the important elements of being able to do that. And really everything goes back to how you think. And, you know, we can't control much in our life, but we can control how we think. You know, I can't control, you know, Miss Terry sometimes, but I can control how I think. So I really wish we could bleep that out. I'd probably get in trouble for that one.
Coach, can you talk about Josh Chapman and the progress he's made this fall camp?
Well, you know, Josh has done a really good job. He's done a good job when he's had an opportunity to play in the past. We were concerned about the fact that we thought he was a little, you know, heavy. He has gotten his weight down. He is moving better, playing with more quickness. And he's done a really good job and steadily improved in fall camp, and I think he's had a really good week this week. So, you know, we've always played 5-6 defensive linemen, even in our 3-4, and then added a couple other pass rush guys in nickel situations, and he's certainly going to be, you know, one of those 5 or 6 guys that are going to get a lot of playing time, and we'll all be dependent on, because he is a really good nose.
Coach, I had a question for you about Caleb Castile. What have you seen from him in camp? And, you know, with his family having quite a legacy here at Alabama, do you see any of Jeremiah or Simeon in him as a person or a player?
Well, I think as a person, you know, that's one of the probably greatest families in the Alabama tradition. You know, Jeremiah has a tremendous impact, and he spoke to our players as well. Players have a lot of respect for him, and does a fantastic job of giving direction, advice, and leadership to inspire. And you know, Simeon was a great leader when he was here, and I think Caleb's the same kind of guy. He's a freshman out there trying to learn what to do right now, and, you know, working hard and gives a lot of effort, and really just like a lot of the freshmen, need to learn how to play. But he's got a great attitude about it. He's very positive about it, and we're very pleased and happy to have him here.
Coach, you talked about the players having to really find out what their identity is and before the season starts. What have you figured out about this team throughout fall camp?
Not really, until you play, you really don't. It's just hard to figure out. You get surprised sometimes in both ways. Sometimes you think you've got what it takes, and sometimes you find out you don't. And then other times you're a little disappointed in the way things are going, but yet when the games come, things fall into place, the leadership falls into place, and people develop confidence in terms of how they play, and you really develop the kind of maturity that you need. And I think that's the biggest thing with this team, that if there's anything that I see, we've got some guys that have played great football here, that are very mature and great competitors. But we also have some guys that have never been the guys that had to do it. And their ability to mature and know what it takes, and not only when you go to play the game, but how you prepare for the game, how you prepare yourself, how you need to focus, how all that mental preparation can contribute to positive performance when you go out there and start competing. I mean, that's what a lot of young players don't realize. And, when they don't have success, then all of a sudden they say, maybe I should be doing what Coach said. Or maybe if I'd have played the right technique, I wouldn't have got beat. Or if I'd have taken the right steps, I would have been able to block that guy. So, all those things are things that, sometimes you just have to learn some of those things. The mistakes that you make are very, very positive if you take them the right way and build on them. And what I say to players all the time, is this going to be a stumbling block or a stepping stone? And if you learn from mistakes and get better and improve, that's the value of them. If you let yourself get frustrated and disappointed and it affects your next play, then we're not making any progress. So we just wasted an opportunity to learn and get better and grow and mature and that type of stuff. But, for the most part, players want to do things the right way, but some of them don't know how to really focus, think, be aware. I use the example all the time. Awareness is so important when you're playing any sport. And really good players are always very aware of this receiver location, they run this pattern, so therefore I can anticipate and do it a little bit better. In this formation, they like to do these things. When they line up in this defense, they like to do this, and we can take advantage of that by what we do. But that takes anticipation, and anticipation takes a lot of maturity. And you got to realize what you don't know and be able to grow so that you can do it. I tell the players all the time, I sit in my chair at home and the dogs start barking because there's a deer in the yard. I didn't know there's a deer in the yard. I'm not aware of it. I can't hear it. I can't smell it. I can't do anything. But they're aware of more than I'm aware when it comes to that. And we're trying to make the point that you need to improve your awareness of what's happening and gathering information so that you can be a better player. And it takes, a lot of maturity. And a lot of these guys, especially the young guys who haven't had to play, they've been better than everybody they played against. So they haven't had to do that. And sometimes it's a little bit of a process to get them to get to that level and to understand the importance of those types of things.